Pěkný dobrý den. Já vás tady moc vítám i za nadační fond Propolis. Jako jeho zakladatelka máme tu velkou čest a obrovskou radost, že letos na Melting Pot, na Colours of Ostrava jsme měli možnost pozvat naprosto výjimečnou ženu. Je to zdravotník, porodní asistentka, je to zároveň moudrá žena, matka 8 dětí, která mimo jiné založila a provozuje aktuálně 6 center porodní asistence neboli zdravotnických zařízení, naprosto unikátních v Indonésii a na Filipínách. Unikátních, protože poskytují péči zcela zdarma, což jinak v těch zemích vůbec není samozřejmostí. A dále zasahovala v první linii jako zdravotník na mnoha místech po živelních katastrofách. Myslím si, že z její zkušenosti můžeme čerpat mnoho a my jako nadační fond se velice snažíme o pozitivní ke všem vstřícné a laskavé reformy v porodnictví a pro nás rozhodně Ibu Robin Lim je velkým zdrojem inspirace. Takže prosím, přivítejte Ibu Robin Lim. Hi. And welcome to the Czech Republic. Welcome to Ostrava.
Selamat siang. So we're going to talk about something today that's not the happiest subject. How is it going with translation? Is it going? Okay, great. So one of the things that I do on top of regular midwifery and advocating for human rights in childbirth is I respond with our team at Bumi Sehat to natural disasters. Bumi is the Earth Mother and Sehat is healthy, so we're Healthy Earth Mother Foundation. Next slide, please. Oh wait, I have a clicker. I'm not used to being in control. Okay, so we have responded to these different disasters. We had terrorist bombs in Bali, Indonesia in 2002. In Aceh, we had the 9.3 earthquake and the very famous Indian Ocean tsunami on December 26, 2004. And we were able to respond 3 weeks before the Red Cross because we're a small team within Indonesia. If you're in Southeast Asia, then you don't have to go through a lot of paperwork. You can immediately respond. We were in all of these different disasters. Earthquakes in Padang, Jogja, Haiti in 2010. Philippines had a super typhoon in 2013. We're there still. We're also in Aceh still. We didn't have an exit strategy. We stayed. Palu, Indonesia. We had an eruption also in 2017 to 2019 of our volcano in Bali. Typhoon Rai in 2021. Earthquake in Bali 2021. And then, of course, the global pandemic. So I feel like the global pandemic was something so unique because all of us were on the stormy sea, but we all were in our small boats by ourselves and very isolated. So one of the things that we know from the statistics is that when a disaster strikes, whether it's a natural disaster or a war, women are hit hardest and children by the disasters. Also, the response to disasters is very gender specific. The needs of men are mostly addressed rather than the needs of women and children. So this is something that the nonprofit organizations, especially the big ones, need to look at very carefully. Women are 14 times more likely to die than men in a case of a disaster. Here's some people, one of our executive directors in the Philippines and one of our mothers who gave birth in the tent in the Philippines after the giant superstorm Haiyan. So you can see the size of the storm. You can see the southern and central Philippines there. You can see a couple who lost their son in the ocean surges during the typhoon, and then a couple of weeks later they were in labor. With their second baby, and 14.5% of the entire population of the Philippines is pregnant at any one time. So when the 9 islands were destroyed and everyone was left homeless, we had over 2 million pregnant women to try to somehow help. Life stories. That's our volcano in Bali. So in Nepal, after the big devastating earthquake, we have many, many stories, but this is a particularly beautiful story. This mother came to us in an ambulance. When the ambulance arrived, we could hear it coming. She stepped down, and the ambulance was full of the grass for feeding goats and also the poo of goats. And when she stepped down, we could see that she was not in a normal labor. She had 2 babies. And her name is Dewi. All of the women in these pictures gave us permission to share with you. Dewi told us repeatedly that her children were born homeless. The first baby was a simple, easy birth, but the second baby, we had very intense distress, and fortunately she was able to reach us before the birth because without the help of skilled midwives, I don't think her second baby could have possibly made it, and then she hemorrhaged, as many mothers do when they're malnourished. And you can see there she's holding solar lights and water filters, which is some of the things that we provide for all of our mothers in disaster zones. This is Ibu Eli in Aceh, Indonesia. 2 of her 4 daughters died in the tsunami. And then 11 months after the disaster, during the time when everyone was homeless, everyone was dependent on rice from the government, no one had a steady source of work or food or even drinking water, she gave birth to twin daughters. It was really an incredible celebration and a symbol of hope for the people of Aceh. Her daughter was 14 at the time of the tsunami and had a dream to be a midwife. And her daughter was there when the baby sisters were born. And this young teenager who was holding her baby sister when the water took her away from her arms, she went from extreme trauma to dedicating herself to be a midwife. We paid for her education, and she's now a beautiful practicing midwife in Aceh. This is back in the Philippines. On the day of the storm, this midwife, Joy, she pushed a new mother through the hole that you see in her ceiling. With a 1-hour-old baby, she and her husband and her toddler and a nurse that was working with her were able to go up in the hole. The roof blew off, and they were still able to survive by holding on to the wooden beams in the roof. And you see there, it's her. She calls her birthing center the 7 Angels Birthing Center. These 2 mothers in the Philippines are sisters. The one in the white dress was in labor in our tent. We have 2 labor beds in the tent. It's just maybe 2.5 meters by 3 meters, this beautiful tent. She was in labor, and just as she was pushing and her baby was crowning with her first baby, her sister was expecting her 3rd baby. Her water released all over the floor of the tent, and they were laughing, and they had their babies within 1 hour of each other. When we asked them if they had a home, they said, yes, we have a home. So we took them there afterwards. This is their home. This is all that was left of their home. Just a little corner of concrete. And we were able to provide them with, we do family buckets, and that's a big bucket. Inside is a tarp, a little cook stove, some fuel, rice, some beans, like mung beans, lighters so they could make a fire, water filter, solar lights, everything that they need to just bare minimal survival. The tarp they can hang up and make some kind of a roof from the rain, and they can catch the rain in the bucket, and then they can filter it for drinking water. But these sisters were so amazing together. These twins, the little boy, Shirley and her husband, the twin boy, Gian, he's wearing a yellow hat. He had a very inoperable schisis where all of his intestines were born on the outside of his body, and we were not able to find anywhere where we could take him even to Manila for operation, so he lived only 5 days, but he had a lot of love. His sister, the younger of the twins, is growing up beautifully. Good practices. We always try to collaborate, midwives, doulas, and doctors and nurses. So you can see the hope for the future, in my opinion, is collaborative care. Those of you who are in childbirth, how many of you are working in childbirth in one way or another? Yeah, doulas, midwives. And how many of you are expecting a baby? 1, anybody else? 2, hi. And so you can imagine if you become homeless and you have no drinking water and no food, it's really traumatic. These are traditional birth attendants in Aceh, Indonesia, working alongside the licensed midwives. The man there is from Direct Relief International. And you can see that these midwives have really grown their practice working with the traditional cultural midwives who were not trained in school, but they were trained in beautiful grandmother to granddaughter relationships of apprenticeship. So this is the aftermath of an earthquake in Bali where this mother had had no prenatal care. She lived so far away from any kind of help, and we were able to bring prenatal care, food, tents to the families because they were left homeless. And when those of you that are in childbirth, you know that when there's some kind of disaster and the whole world is turning upside down, the babies seem to be more often coming breech or feet or butt first. And so we had to really make sure that we knew how to deliver the breech baby safely. In the first year, we had 777 babies in our tent. We only put 770 in the statistics because the rain blew away 7 of our charts, so we didn't have the data. In that 777 babies, there was only 6 hospital transports, but the hospital was also destroyed. And of those 2, we were able to assist the hospital doctors in 2 in the 6 hospital transports when it was necessary for a belly birth or a cesarean, we were able to assist the doctors. And we had 2 vaginal birth after cesarean. There isn't a very high rate of cesarean there, it's very low. And then 14 of our babies in the first 2 months were breech. You can see the mother there with the breech baby coming. Delayed umbilical cord clamping and cutting. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. You see all of these mothers are with their babies' cords, and the placentas are in bowls, and they're just giving time. Usually in our clinics, our practice is to wait for 3 hours before clamping and cutting the cord so that the baby gets their maximum blood supply with oxygen, nutrients, and of course stem cells. Especially in a disaster. These women are in Papua, and Papua had a really high rate of death during COVID. 10 of my closest friends died in Papua. Women I knew very, very well and was close to. So Papua had a very hard time in the COVID. They also have a very high rate of malaria, dengue fever, and other problems there, plus conflict zone. So safely burning the umbilical cord, when there is no possible way to sterilize surgical instruments, we don't use scissors because scissors can be a danger for tetanus toxoid for the babies. What we do is we safely burn the umbilical cord by using heat guard. Usually we use cardboard and candles. And it cauterizes the cord. We usually leave 8 to 10 centimeters of cord, which then dries up very quickly and falls off. And again, we wait many hours before we do this. When the cord is completely white and there's no more blood flowing to the baby, and the baby's had an opportunity to breastfeed many times. So midwives, we're flexible. We've received babies in Coca-Cola truck. We've received babies in tents, anywhere where we can set up. These midwives during the pandemic, the national regulation was that you could not keep your birth center open unless you could test for COVID. There were no COVID tests available in Indonesia. So on the charts, it says that we tested, but we could not possibly test. But it was required that we wear the proper personal protective wear, like hazmat suits. But because there were no hazmat suits available, our midwives went out and bought rain jackets and plastic pants, and they wore these. And it is hot by the equator. Papua is much hotter than Bali. It's terrible. And they, rather than stop serving the women and the babies, they wore these terribly hot outfits. You can see the mother's really happy. Breastfeeding. I can't stress enough the importance of breastfeeding. And unfortunately, when you have a disaster like an earthquake, whether you're in L'Aquila, Italy, or in Indonesia or Philippines with the storms, no matter where we went, Nepal, Haiti, Nestle was there. And they try to get there quickly, and they give the mothers infant formula, and they give them the dry formula, they give them 1 bottle, and they say, you've had a trauma, do not breastfeed your baby, it won't be healthy. These women don't have a kitchen, they have no running water, they have no way of sterilizing the milk in the bottles, they have no way to safely. When we first went to Aceh, we were there just quickly, right away, in the first few days after the tsunami. And Nestle was already there, and we identified 63 babies who died from waterborne illness because the mothers tried to feed them formula. So breastfeeding not only saves lives, it's absolutely essential in this time. And all of us are facing climate crisis. How many of you are concerned about climate crisis? Yeah, all of us, really concerned. We're also facing, terrible wars in Europe and the Middle East right now, in other places in the world. And if we try to feed the babies infant formula, there will be problems. There will be babies dying unnecessarily. Whereas the mother's milk, it's always the right temperature, it's always perfectly clean, it's absolutely perfect for your baby any time of day and night. Even the research shows that, for example, if the mother pumps her milk, she should write if she pumped it morning or evening, because if she gives morning milk to her baby in the evening, the baby will have much more trouble sleeping, because the morning milk wakes the baby up. So women's bodies are incredibly amazing. We're called mammals because we have mammaries, we have breasts. It's like amazing. And it's a superpower. So women don't fail to breastfeed. Many women don't breastfeed, but it's not because they failed. It's because their support systems failed them, their healthcare providers, and the people looking after them, including their families. So it's one of the things that we're really proud of. At all of our Bumi Sehat birth centers and free community health clinics, we have 100% breastfeeding. We have one mother right now who's the only one in over 16,000 births who's not breastfeeding, and it's because she had a double mastectomy. But this mother is getting milk from our Dr. Dayu and from several of our midwives on the team who are breastfeeding mothers. So she has an ongoing supply of mother's milk. It's very hard for her because her first 3 children were breastfed, and she cannot, without breastfeed her baby. But you can see that in all ways we are supporting our mothers, whether they are mothers who are in wheelchairs because they suffered polio in childhood. No matter what their situation is, we always help them breastfeed. Collaborations. This is from We Care Solar. They're an amazing organization that makes these solar suitcases. And we could do really surgeries that no one would try out in the field, but there was no hospital to transport to. We were able to do them with the help of these solar lights. We also placed these solar lights, over 100 of them, in the far-flung areas of the Philippines to try to get the midwives out in those areas back working so that they could be open all night, even though there was no electricity. They also have water filters here, and this is one of our midwives, Joy, at the Seven Angels Maternity Clinic, and she's so happy to have a solar suitcase. It also has a provision with like an octopus that you plug it in, and it can recharge any kind of phone. So people would stand in line to plug in their phones and leave them with us. I really encourage all of you in this day and age to go out and get yourself a good solar light. Please do that. And a good water filter for your family. Put it in a bag, make photocopies or some kind of copy of all of your things like passports, driver's license, health cards, anything that you need if you lose everything, okay? Put those in. If you have someone in your family that has special medications, make sure that there are some of that in there. If you have pets, put some of their food in there. Put snacks for children that are not perishable. Put some protein. I mean, in my family, we have I call it the jump away bag or the go bag if we have nothing. I have a little tent in there. I have a couple yoga mats, some towels, some sarongs, and snacks for the kids. I have canned tuna because it's easy to open. It has just this opening, and then it's protein for the children. And so this is the kind of thing, please try to organize just a little bit in case there's a disaster. And a friend of mine was called by the Houston police and taken to a place where a mother was on a second story of her house. The whole first story of the entire neighborhood was flooded. They took her on a little boat, and she was able to deliver the baby when the mother was in labor in a flooded house. Okay, this is a premature baby being held. Actually, the shirt of the baby's open. This is Jacqueline Aurora. She's one of our beautiful midwives. She started out as a doula, then became a lactation consultant, and went on to study midwifery. She's now running an incredible program in Hawaii that responded to the fire in Lahaina last year. And she's holding the baby skin to skin while the father takes the mother to the bathroom. And we had tents for postpartum and tents for birth. You can see this. This is Lorena, the midwife, holding the baby. I don't know if you can see this beautiful baby. And she's just giving that mother a moment. Instead of just putting the baby right up on her right away, she's letting the mother have a moment to shyly get to know her baby. Mothers usually will touch their baby's face and then and then if their husband's there, her husband, unfortunately, her husband died in the typhoon. But if the husband is there, the mothers invariably will look at their partner and say, "Baby looks like you." And then she takes the baby to her heart. And the first embrace of life is what we really protect as doulas, as midwives, as doctors and nurses. We really protect that first embrace of life, and we never cut the cord until the mother has had time to breastfeed. Our normal waiting time is about 3 hours in Bali and in Philippines. Even in disaster zones. In that little tent, we had better outcomes than the best, most incredible, well-equipped hospital in Manila. So in the same country, we had better birth outcomes by far in a tent. And I believe that our secret was love. It was skin-to-skin contact, no separation of mother and baby, and breastfeeding, and delaying, cord clamping, and cutting. So this is a non-pneumatic anti-shock garment. We put it on the mothers who have hemorrhaged. Say a mother has given birth in the middle of nowhere, and somehow someone from the family comes to us, and we reach her, and we see that she's bled out. We can put her in this anti-shock garment, which pushes the blood from her legs up to her heart, and then we can get an IV in her. And you can see she can still breastfeed. It's actually open so that we can, if there's anything that needs to be taken care of around her vagina, so we don't want, if she has some retained placenta or something, we can deal with that. And here we're doing a training. That's actually a Polish midwife who is helping our Filipino midwives, and she's learning with our Filipino midwives about this beautiful anti-shock garment. There's no electricity needed. It's just, we can put it on, we can wash it. They say that they can be used up to 80 times, so we wash them and put them in the sun and use them again. They're really amazing. This is our midwives, some of the dads holding their babies. We had tents inside of a school building, a doula, someone from Direct Relief International. There's an OBGYN in the back. She's from New York City. And our team just worked together all the time. And then we had these little pop-up tents that we slept in. What we did was we commandeered a school building with a room about the length of this room, but half the width, and we were able to set up the birthing tents inside, and we got a roof put on. There was no roof, so when it rained, it was like a swimming pool on the floor, and we would use our slippers to push the water out. So we did get a German organization to put a roof on our building. This is when babies are born in the back of trucks, when people come to us, and our midwives jump out and help. This is a mother being transported for a hemorrhage in a truck. And soon after this, I don't know if you know Michael Franti and the Soul Rockers, they raised the money for us to have a proper ambulance. So now in Lombok, in this disaster area, we have a proper ambulance and a beautiful clinic built by Direct Relief International. You can see, no matter where you receive the baby into the world, the mother and baby can be safe if you have skilled and loving support. Our midwives go wherever they're needed. You can see that they're going out to little islands on Lake Sentani in Papua, and they hike out there. First they row the boats, and then they hike out there to make sure the mothers have prenatal care, that they have vitamins, and they also do the first aid and for the sick children and adults that are out there, because there's absolutely no medical care at all there. This is Lily, one of our midwives, rowing out to the island to do prenatal care. We also row out for births. We give them little hand phones, little Nokia hand phones, so they can contact us, and we buy their hand phone plans. And then this is midwife Farida Salman. She was one of our most beloved midwives, and she was our head of medicine in Papua, and she was taken by COVID. She has 3 daughters and a husband who miss her so much. The one in the red. She's one of my best friends, but she's gone. So we need to build a golden chain of love. Each of you is a link in a chain of love and support for someone who needs you. Doulas, you're a very important link. Midwives are an important link. Family, aunties, uncles, grandmothers, children, the older children. My adult children went to Aceh and did body recovery for the people there. And you become a link in the golden chain of support. And the chain is as strong as the weakest link, so be a strong link. If it means that your neighbor has a baby, don't be so sure she has everything she needs. Bring a meal for her entire family and just be there for her. You know, just hold her hand. You don't have to say anything. You just have to be a link in the chain. And this is a mother. They lost their home in the earthquake, and this is what they built, and this is where she had her baby. She was able to contact our midwives in Lombok, and they went out to her. And this is the next day. They're checking her blood pressure, making sure she's okay. This is a drawing by one of the most beautiful children whose father died in the tsunami but was able to, when the water was as high as the coconut trees, he was able to take off his sarong and tie his little boy in the top of the tree where we found him. He was the only one in his family to survive, and he drew this. This is a beautiful poem by Kenneth Patchen. Have you wondered why all the windows in heaven were broken? Have you seen the homeless in the open grave of God's hand? Okay, and so in this era of climate crisis, we midwives and doulas are uniquely prepared to serve. And I say doulas because one of the most dramatic births we had in the tent in the Philippines was a doctor who had a broken car that was smashed by a tree in the typhoon, but he was able to drive a first-time mom with convulsions of eclampsia to us because he didn't know what to do. They came to where he was camping with his family, and he drove in this incredibly broken car, and the mother was convulsing. And the only way we could get an IV in her arm was I had to climb up on top of her and hold her down. We got an IV in her, and one of the Filipino midwives, when this whole crazy birth was going on, started screaming, "Where is our doula?" Because our doula took care of so many details, charting so we had good data, making sure that every mother had some postpartum. What all the mothers wanted in the Philippines was hot chocolate. That's what they wanted. So she made sure that we found the chocolate, we found the milk powder, and she made it and made sure every mother had it. This is Ibu Budi. There she is with the Rohingya mother helping after the Rohingya people where they walked barefoot from Myanmar all the way to Bangladesh. And here she is. Her own village was completely destroyed in Lombok. And Ibu Budi is one of the rising stars in midwifery and loving care. She's so amazing. And she went from finding her own village with her own family completely destroyed to becoming head of medicine at our clinic there in Lombok, Indonesia. This is a twin mother, a mom, Ida Bagus. She arrived and gave birth quickly to twins. The second one was breech, all safely born with us. And we're using her picture to ask for help and support for Bumi Sehat, because sometimes we need support, a lot. Because when you give free medical care and educational opportunities away, it's not inexpensive. So the thing about woman-to-woman care for mothers in pregnancy, birth, and postpartum is it's culturally safe for all women of all cultures. So we need to stay better informed. We need to make sure to collaborate so that when a mother needs a higher level of care, there's an easy access to the doctors and hospitals, if there are any hospitals. But if she needs to go to the hospital, we are there for her. We have a system of support. And love. Love is, I believe, our key. It's what makes it all work. Okay, thank you. I think that's it. Do you have questions? This is your time. I'd like to You can just leave that photo up. That's a traditional birth attendant. Oh, I can try. Here, I'll let you do it. Just go back. You'll find it. Does anyone have a question? Don't be shy. Yes, do you have a question? No. Yes, hi. That's a good question. I'm a ruthless beggar. I mean, honestly, it's crazy how I beg. So, but you know what? Even during COVID, our board said to me, you're going to have to choose 1 or 2 clinics to close of the 6. And I said, no, I'm not closing a clinic, because if I close a clinic, it's like throwing away one of my children. I can't do it. And our contributors were so kind and loving and generous. Oh, are we still translating? Good. They were so kind and loving and generous that they were able to keep all of our clinics open for the entire pandemic, even though most of our donors are small donors and we're in financial crisis. Yes. Wait.
Thank you
What
for
is
the
your name?
presentation. Elena.
Elena. And what is your name to the mama who's expecting a baby? What is your name?
Jana.
Jana. That's right, I asked you yesterday. Elena.
Just a quick question. Maybe you can explain what's the difference between the midwife and the doula for us?
Good question.
And the second one, if you are focusing only on the problems within the childbirth or also on the fertility problems?
Say that again?
Fertility. Conception, yeah.
Oh, okay. We do have programs for fertility at Bumi Sehat, mostly in Bali, where we do acupuncture. We provide the women with vitamins because a lot of times they're infertile because they're malnourished. And so we also do natural family planning, the Billings method, so the women know when their window of potential fertility is. You see in many cultures, the women will find a way to avoid their husbands when they have some wetness coming out of their yoni, but the wetness is a sign usually of fertility if she doesn't have any sickness. So you find out that they've never made love when the woman is fertile, sometimes in years. And once we tell them, they're immediately pregnant within one cycle. So, and what was the first question? Doulas and midwives. Okay, doulas give continuous non-medical care to the mother, comfort measures, like rubbing her back, like helping her feel secure, like making sure that oxytocin is the hormone of love. And when we have oxytocin flowing, we just do better and have easier, simple, usually shorter labors and nicer childbirth. And so midwives are, however, medically trained, and they can deal with most emergencies, and they know when it's out of their scope of practice. For example, midwives do not do cesarean birth. You know, that's a specialty of the OBGYN. And so midwives and doulas and doctors all work in concert together for the optimal care of mothers. And all of them are essential. I mean, I remember when I was a younger midwife and I thought this doula thing was crazy. What do we need a doula for? But I did find out over time that I was a better midwife when I had the support of a doula on the team. So for the mother, doulas are incredible. I know a lot of the dads find that doulas, and statistically they found that the dads observing how the doulas care for their wife, the wives later report that he becomes a better partner. So, you know, there's so much magic in that. And it's an ancient profession. It's been around for forever. Women taking care of women. Yeah. How many doulas are here? Quite a few. Lily is a doula. Who else is a doula? Not so many today. Yesterday we had a lot more. So, any more questions? Yes. You didn't bring your boy today.
Well, Daddy is taking care of him.
Ah,
I need a
nice.
break.
Uh-huh.
You know, I'm wondering, what do you think helps the women to get in a meditative state while they're giving birth? Be in a meditative state when they give birth.
A
You know?
meditative state?
Yes, because in my personal experience, you know, when I had contractions, I really liked it. I enjoyed it. But then when it came to pushing, I just kind of lost that feeling. I had to be induced. I was planning on home birth, but unfortunately I had to be induced because my water broke and I had to go to the hospital. But you know, I kind of lost that. And if I have a second child, I would like to know how to do better.
I don't know. That's an interesting question because I gave birth 5 times. And each time I went from calm to, oh my God, there's like a tsunami happening inside my body. Part of it is I had someone, even when I was a teenage mom, I had a friend who was like my doula. She had no special training, but she really knew how to calm me down and rub my back so my midwives could keep me calm. And I found that once my body was ready to push, I almost enjoyed that. Like it was like the labor wasn't doing me anymore, I was doing my labor, and that was really a gift. And sometimes the mothers find that. And you'll see like our mothers are often smiling, and when they're smiling, I know that they're getting the care they need, even when they're pushing. So, anyone else? Yes, beautiful baby, thank you for bringing it.
So yesterday you or your translator, I don't know which one, said that you can eat a little bit of placenta to have more oxytocin during the birth.
That you can eat some of the placenta? Is that what you said?
Someone, or you or your
yeah.
translator.
It's true.
But if you push out the placenta, the birth is finished. So how did you mend it? Placenta from the first birth? Or?
No. So, for example, if you're at a birth, if I was at a birth, and the mother was bleeding, and we were in a disaster zone, and there was no oxytocin medicine to inject, and she was bleeding.
Oh, after the birth, you
When
mean.
the placenta was born, I would take a little bit, and I would ask her permission to give it to her.
Okay.
And it works like amazing.
Not during, okay.
To stop the hemorrhage.
Understood, thanks.
Yeah, I'm sure it's fine. Some people find it offensive, but it saves lives. Yes?
I'm actually wondering, you have to cut the cord first?
No.
And then so you just cut a little bit of
So, let me see. So imagine the baby's been born, the placenta is still inside, and then the placenta comes. And you can leave it intact and just take a little, it's called a carolidin, just take it. I usually say a prayer if I take it. And honestly, I don't do this often. It's not like I'm picking off a bit of placenta and feeding it to every mother. You know, it's very rare, and some mothers ask before the birth if they can have some of their placenta. Now, I know that a lot of hospitals routinely give the Pitocin induction, but because Pitocin is very close to oxytocin, it's almost identical, it's so nice if you just support the mother and surround her in love so that she doesn't need an injection. Her natural oxytocin is flowing, and that's part of the function of the doula, is to make sure that, which is, again, doulas, without doing anything medical, just giving loving comfort care, can save lives. Yes, what's your name? I forgot to ask your name. What's your name? Linda. That's right, I asked you yesterday. Beautiful. Hi, what is your name?
Hello, my name is Katerina. I was
Nice
not
to meet you.
here the whole lecture, so I wanted to ask. I don't know if you said
I can't
it.
hear you.
Yeah, there's the echo, right? Or
Can you go and sit next to her and see if you can hear her better? Sorry.
víc blíž? Now you can hear me.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, my name is Katerina. I was not here the whole lecture, but I have a question. What would be the most common positions that your women take when they are pushing? I don't know if you were discussing it.
So, it's okay. You want to show? You can. Come up here. Many of our mothers squat. A lot of our midwives really prefer if they're upright, especially when the baby is breech. is absolutely necessary when the baby's breech. Some mothers, if I find that if they've given birth in the hospital 1 or 2 times, they will lay down because they think that that is what they should do. But when we tell them they're free, sometimes laying on the side, sometimes kneeling, sometimes one leg up, holding on to their partner like this. So it is actually in the midwifery regulations in Indonesia, it says that the midwife must accommodate the mother in any position she wants to give birth. So this is a very special thing that I'm happy about that.
And do you think that your women giving birth, that they come to meet you, that these women, when they choose the position, they choose it naturally because they feel like it, or you have to guide them?
It depends. Like if they seem to be preferring to lay on their back, and then the birth is just not going so easily, then the midwives will say, "Hey, you want to try something else?" And then sometimes mom will say, "Well, normally when I poo, I squat because we have squat toilets in Indonesia, and that I feel like this baby's like a poo that won't come out." And they squat and the baby comes. Yeah. Anybody else questions? Do we have plenty of time, or are we running out? Yes. Jana. Yes, good question, how to prepare the yoni for the birth. We find that coconut oil or olive oil, just putting it on there, and believe it or not, making love. Because the prostaglandin from your partner, if your partner's a man, from the semen, actually softens the cervix and gets everything ready. So, just for that, the orgasms help with the muscles relaxing. And, pleasure is important. It doesn't matter if you're huge pregnant, even more so you should have pleasure. We find that's very, very important. So, yes, Linda. We do get a lot of tears in some areas, like in Bali. Remember in 1963 we had a major volcanic eruption. We had another one in 2017, 18, 19. And the people, when the major volcanic eruption happened, and then right after that they had a big civil war. So they had many years of poverty and starvation. They say over 100,000 people starved to death on our island. And they have generation after generation of malnutrition, and that tends to be a setup for tearing. We do really, again, the women might not have money to buy a bottle of coconut oil, so I'm always buying coconut oil and giving it away and saying, rub it on there, enjoy it. And sometimes that helps. In the Philippines, in the coastal areas where the typhoon was really bad, one of the main things the women eat is fish. And they had less tears because of the fish protein. In Indonesia, most of the poor women, their main source of protein is tempeh, which is soy, which is, these days, it's genetically modified. So we think that there's a correlation between that. Mm-hmm. And all of our midwives are really skilled at suturing. Yeah, there are many things I can't do. I can suture. I can suture a 4th degree tear, which means if you tear through the anus, I can fix that. I'm good at it. I had to do one just before I left to come here. It's an incredibly good feeling when you can make sure that the mother is well sutured and comfortable and doesn't have complications later, because it's a very important part of her life to make sure that not only does she heal well and she can poo properly, but that she can still enjoy making love and have pleasure. So it's really important to us as midwives. More questions? How is our time? It's okay? 10 minutes? Yes, what's your name? Petra. Oh, that's right. I met you yesterday, Petra.
I was going to ask about older mothers, if they have in general maybe more difficult
like
births.
mothers who are, we recently
Like
had a
over
mom who was
40.
44 having her first baby. She had a longer labor. And because her labor was so long and she was fully dilated for 14 hours and her baby wasn't coming, but I remembered that she told me that had dreamed that Dr. Pariata, who's our collaborative care OBGYN, how do you say OBGYN here? Gynecok. Yes. Porodnik. So she dreamed that he was with me when the baby was born. And so before our baby went into distress, after her pushing for off and on for 14 hours, I said, what if we call Dr. Pari? And he said, yeah, come. Took us 20 minutes to go to him. There was no rush. Everything was fine. She got there, and she had, because of the way things were going for her, to have a vacuum where the baby was kind of pulled out with the vacuum suction machine, and for me, I was crying because I felt like, and I was pushing and helping, and then she did skin to skin, breastfed, everything. She didn't want the cord cut. She waited until 2 more days to cut the cord. And then a week later, when I read her Facebook post and how wonderful her birth was for her, I was crying. Because for us as midwives and doulas, maybe the birth isn't exactly what we would call optimal. But if it's optimal for the mother, this is so important. And the reason it was optimal for her was because she felt like her voice was heard. Anything that she asked for, we provided. So always listen to the mothers. Just like with our children, if we listen to them, they're going to be happier kids. Yeah. Anyone else?
Ibu, I will just say numbers of the hospitals because like this they cannot appreciate how great the numbers are. Mm-hmm. Když byste tyhle čísla, těch 770 dětí, převedli na nás, na kteroukoliv evropskou zemi a nedej bože na Spojené státy, tak byste byli na 240 až 300 převozech do nemocnice z těch 770 dětí. Byli byste na 140 císařských řezích v těch lepších porodnicích. Jenom pro představu. Řekla jsem to dobře? Jo. No, čtvrtina by, prostě by to bylo tak. My máme 14 až 24% císařských řezů a ona má 0,25. Jo. Stejně jako podobně kvalitní centra v Singapuru a jinde. I just said the numbers, which will mean, so now they understand your numbers.
Change slides so we're not all looking at the Mama Zainis.
It's a beautiful bridge. Come on. Everybody needs to see the bridge.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. We do a lot with very little, burning the umbilical cord. Any more questions before our time is finished?
I have last question.
Hi, Linda. That's good. I love questions.
As I mentioned, I had to be induced in the hospital, even though I planned on home birth. I had to go to the hospital to be induced with Pitocin, and it was in the United States. And I tried to induce it naturally. But what is your recommendation when water breaks and the labor doesn't start? What do you suggest to the woman? Because here in Europe, it's in the hospital they give antibiotics after 24 hours. I think it's different in every country. In the United States, it's a little bit different. But I'm just wondering what you do in this case.
That's a really good question. So if the mother's water releases, normally within about 24 hours or less, there will be spontaneous contractions, especially if she feels relaxed and supported and not rushed. But what happens is you have to report to hospital, right? Now, if they report to the birth center and her water's gone out, we usually just say, let's just be quiet and wait. Give them a room, give them their privacy. You know, help them watch a funny movie on their iPad if they need one. We'll loan them one. Take care of their kids for them. And then if nothing happens, we will, after 24 hours, it is required, and we are 8 degrees below the equator, and it's really hot. And the chance of infection, in my opinion, it's better to give the mother antibiotics than to have a baby that's septic and go on IV antibiotics after she's born. So we give the mother antibiotics, and we also give her like a castor oil with some hard-boiled eggs because the protein, and fresh orange juice because this vitamin C, the real vitamin C, pushes it. And normally that will work. Now, last month we had a mom whose water released and nothing happened. And we tried the castor oil, and she got the diarrhea, and she had contractions. It all stopped. Is that what happened to you? Yes, it all stopped. We asked her to go on the antibiotics, and she was happy to do that. And then we waited. And we have acupuncture at our clinic. So the acupuncture is actually to keep her relaxed. Instead of making her go to the acupuncture room, they went to her room. She had a private room with her husband, did acupuncture. Nothing happened. Next day, she wanted the castor oil again. So we kept her well hydrated, we gave her the castor oil again, and the baby wasn't ready. So it didn't work. She had acupuncture again. But our collaborative care OBGYN agreed that as long as she was drinking, as long as she was eating, as long as she was staying hygienic and taking the antibiotics, there was no rush. We waited 8 days. And when her labor started, her baby was born in less than 3 hours. First time mom. It was beautiful. And of course, we were checking her labs. We do have a lab. I don't throw away science, and I don't do crazy things that put babies at risk. But we were checking her labs to make sure there was no infection present and reporting to the OBGYN. And he came over and saw her a couple of times during that 8 days and reassured her that he was there for her at the hospital if we needed to move her. And it was just a beautiful experience for all of our staff. And I'm sure that most people in obstetrics would be mortified for 8 days. And it wasn't just a little leak of water that just sealed up. It was gushing out water. But she kept drinking. And, we do have ultrasound. We don't use it routinely, but we were checking to make sure there were pockets of water and the baby was not, feeling distress in there. So we did monitor her very closely during that 8 days. And that was a good outcome. Yeah. Yes. Hi. Tell me your name again. Petra. Huh? Fedula. Yes. You were at our workshop, yeah?
Yes, yesterday. Yes. Thank you. Since we were talking about waiting for 8 days, it brought me to another question. How long are you willing to wait for a woman to... Sorry? Yeah, with a,
so
when
past
a woman
40
yes,
weeks and
yes,
yeah.
and maybe past 42 weeks, does it happen to you? And how long would you wait?
We had a mother yesterday who's married to an Indonesian man, and she's Russian. Her name's Daria. She was 43 weeks and 2 days. Second baby. First baby was born at 41 weeks. And everything was perfect, great, perfect. But again, we monitored her very tightly. We really kept track of her. We didn't take chances. We're not going to take chances. And again, we're so blessed that we have a collaborative care OBGYN who's, for example, his second baby was born at home with me. So he'll do anything for us. And third baby came out on the toilet when she got up to pee, so we were late. And first one was born in the hospital with another OBGYN, which was not such a great experience, but it was okay. But, he's really there for all of our mothers, no matter what. And if there is something that is risky for the baby or the mother or both of them, we are not going to hesitate to go to the hospital and get care from him. And how wonderful is it if a mother needs to have a belly birth or a cesarean, if she can choose for her baby's cord to be left intact and not cut. And we have that choice. Very few places in the world do you have that choice, but we have that choice.
So just for your imagination, what happens here, it was my problem too, that the baby didn't want to come, but I didn't want to have an induced birth. So what happens in the hospital is that you sign a paper that you don't want it, and they send you home, and they tell you, don't come anymore. Don't come anymore.
Anymore?
No. So you don't want us to induce your birth. Now we think it's the right time, even though everything is fine with the baby and with me. They send you home and they don't provide any more care. I mean, medical care. And I would think, in my opinion, that you should be monitored, as you said. But this is not what, it's not, it doesn't happen here.
And what happened?
Well, I gave birth at home, I think.
Did you have support?
Yes.
Good.
I think the lady's sitting right next to me. I don't know if she remembers me.
Thank you for helping her. Thank you.
Can I just comment? I had an induced labor and it almost killed my daughter. I had an induced labor at hospital because it was the right time, what the hospital said, and it almost killed my baby.
Yeah, because the baby will go into distress, just statistically, when you induce with Pitocin, which is so strong. So our head of medicine, Dr. Dayu in Bali, she had 6 years ago an induced labor because after 41 weeks plus 5 days, her mother-in-law is also a doctor, her husband's a professor of medicine, her husband was saying wait, her mother-in-law was pushing her, and all of us midwives were saying, look, we don't want to tell you what to do, but we think it's good to wait. Well, first baby, and in Bali you have to have a boy because there's no social welfare. When you're old, the girls marry away from the home and your sons take care of you. And so, you know, they had done ultrasounds and this is a precious baby, he's a boy. You know, it's very hard because Dr. Dayu was saying this baby would be precious if she's a girl also. But the whole family pushed her and she went in for an induction. And the baby went into distress when she was 7 centimeters and there was an emergency cesarean. Her husband was so traumatized because they just took her away and they wouldn't let him near her, and then he didn't see her for 6 hours. They had no contact with their baby for 13 hours, and they knew he was just crying and giving up and waiting for them. There was no love there. And so she did a most amazing thing. The next baby, which was born about 9-10 months ago now, she didn't go home. She kept coming to work. And I said, gosh, you're 41 weeks and 4 days. How come you're still at work? And she said, have you met my mother-in-law? I am not going home. I'm staying here until she's in bed. And so she kept saying to me, what should I do? What should I do? And I said, look, of the 10 most intelligent human beings I know on this planet, you're in the top 10. I love you and I believe in you. I know that you know in your heart what to do for your baby and for yourself. So close your ears, stop reading this telephone, turn it off. Because they're putting poison in there, and they're putting poison in your ears, and all these people giving you advice. Even if I give you advice, even if I think it's good advice, it's not coming from your inner knowing. And our job as doulas and midwives is to awaken the mother's inner knowing and then believe in her. So I kept saying again and again, I believe in you. And she would follow me around. She would see a few more patients in the medical room, and then she would say, you really believe in me? And I'd say, yeah. And she would just lean against me and cry. Well, she went home that night, 11 o'clock. She started leaking water. Contractions began, or expansions. Let's call them expansions. And she showed up with her husband at our clinic, because I told her, I don't care if you go to the hospital, I'm going to follow you there and I'm going to hold your hand and be your doula. If you go to the river to give birth, I will hold your hand. If you come here, all of the midwives here will hold you and protect you. She came. Now, I know this is going to go online, but it's disrecommended to have water birth in Indonesia, but she had a water birth. It's disrecommended to wait for full lotus birth, but she waited for 36 hours before clamping and cutting the cord. And it's disrecommended to have a vaginal birth after cesarean, and her first baby was cesarean. So she broke all the rules, and she had the most incredible experience. And for her husband, he said he felt like he got his masculinity back because he lost it when he lost contact with her. He could not protect her once she was induced. And even as a doctor and a professor of medicine, he could not protect her. And he said he really felt diminished as a man. So he really feels like it was healing for him. And when their little boy came in the morning with his grandmother and saw her breastfeeding the new baby sister, his face was just, And she quickly passed the baby to her husband and took her son. She opened her shirt. She took off his shirt, and she did skin to skin with him. And he was crying. And he said, why wasn't I born here at Bumisehat? Why did I get born at the hospital? And he kept saying this. And this was a little boy that when you say hi to him, he would do this. He was always closed. He was always protecting himself. And then she just held him and held him and held him. He cried and sobbed and sobbed. Then he spiked a really high fever. And she asked me to come in the room, and she said, I know this sounds weird, but I feel like he needs an IV. And I said, is that your inner knowing? Because I believe in you. And she said, yeah. So I helped her put an IV in her son. He's a 5.5-year-old boy. And after the IV was in, he's still crying, still saying, I should have been born here. And then he said to me, look. He looked at the IV, the plastic pipe, and he said, I have an umbilical cord. I'm being born now. I'm being born with my mom here now. And you know what? She stayed with him. After 24 hours, we took out the IV, or less, maybe 12 hours. We took it out, and he stayed there. He was fine. The fever went down. It was a really high fever. He spiked a fever of 41, just like that. Fever went down to normal, and he stayed there in the bed with his mom and his baby sister and his dad, and his grandmother would come and sit on the bed with them. They stayed in that room for 5 days until they were ready, until he said his birth was finished. So this little boy, when you say hi to him now, he runs and hugs people. He's completely transformed. He was healed by the birth of his sister and by his mother's ability to just give him that process of healing. So, he was 5.5 years old. It was so transformational. And what an incredible thing for that family and for all of us midwives. And also to have Dr. Dayu putting it on her social media. I had a VBAC, you know, and she's a doctor. Everyone's saying, don't do VBAC, don't take a risk. She said, I did it, and you can all do it. So, any more questions? I think we're past time. Gabrielle is getting nervous. One more? No, nothing? You're all okay? All right. Can I ask you to just, let's just do a little oxytocin thing. Let's hold hands, or like, I'm going to teach you the vagal nerve release. It's so simple. Get your hands warm. Come back here. Get your hands warm. And then these 2 fingers. Put your fingers on your eyebrows, move up and around your face. All around, just like you're hugging your face like you would a child. And do it again. Same 2 fingers from your eyebrows to your hair and around your face. It feels so good. And then again. So 3 times. Then take your fingers and comb your hair. Mess up your hair. Come on, Papa, mess up your hair. I know you don't have much, but you look good. Come on. Rub that hair. That feels so good. Now with these 2, thumb and forefinger, just take your ears and massage all the way around. And then when you get to your earlobes, give a tug. Give yourself a hug. Namaste. This really helps mothers in labor who are hanging on. It really helps. Our mom that finally, after 8 days, her labor started, we did this together. So it's something you can reset your vagal nerve, which is really controlling so much of your body, mind, and spirit. And you can use this anytime. It's free. So simple. And teach it to everyone you know. I love you. I love you. Thank you for coming and sharing oxytocin. Bye.